music. See, I'm almost with John. Maybe.
I had it going in the very beginning.
That's true. That is true.
Can everyone hear that?
Oh, sorry.
A little bit? How about that? Is that better? All right, better? Good deal. All right, it is 7:33, and we have convened back in open session. Our only item tonight will be our District of Innovation hearing, public hearing. With that, we're going to get into our District of Innovation presentation. Ms. Woolens, our presenter.
Hello, good evening. Can y'all hear me? This is the JISD public hearing to provide info and solicit input regarding the District of Innovation opportunity. Before I begin, I want to welcome you to a few of our visitors. I'm Stacy Woolens, Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Here in our first chair is Sierra Fisher. She's with Karshevsky, Bradshaw, and Spalding Attorneys and Counselors of Law. Then we have Marianne Kondo. She's our field service agent with Region 5 Education Service Center. And then we have Byron Carrier, our Deputy Executive Director of Region 5 Education Service Center. We welcome our visitors tonight. Okay, what is a District of Innovation? Or you'll hear me refer to it as DOI. The 84th legislative session in 2015 passed House Bill 1842 and created the District of Innovation designation, which provides a district exemption from certain sections of the Texas Education Code. The Commissioner of Education states the District of Innovation designation provides our districts with added flexibility that's specific to each community. Okay, we asked the question, why is Jasper ISD interested in DOI? A few points here. To examine our goals and research laws that prevent us from meeting our mission. To be competitive with surrounding districts. To create a plan to assist in providing flexibility to implement practices similar to charter schools. To decide which flexibilities best suit the needs of our district and community. To level the playing field. Okay, who can or cannot become a DOI? A district with an academic accountability rating that met standard is eligible for DOI. A district with final or preliminary rating of improvement required is not eligible. Jasper ISD is eligible at this time with a met standard 2018 accountability rating and a grade of B. What is the process to become a District of Innovation? The process is initiated with a board resolution or by signed petition from a majority of the district level advisory committee. The board must conduct a public hearing to consider the development of an innovation plan, which is why we're here tonight. Within 30 days of the public hearing, the board must formally decide to pursue or decline the opportunity. When the district elects to proceed, the board appoints an innovation plan committee to write a plan. Next steps after development. Post the plan on your district website. Notify the commissioner of the intent to adopt a plan. The Innovation Committee holds a public meeting to consider and approve the final version with a majority vote. The board must adopt the plan with 2/3 majority vote. And once the plan is adopted, the district must notify the Commissioner of Education. This is Jasper ISD's proposed timeline. We have completed a few items on the timeline. September 10th, board information. The district provided an overview. October 1st, the district educational committee met and provided an overview and expressed purpose for the signing of the petition to the Board of Trustees requesting a public hearing to engage in the educational stakeholders. Jasper ISD's development of an innovation plan. October 8th, a resolution was adopted, and Jasper ISD trustees adopted a resolution to initiate the District of Innovation process. And tonight, in red, we are holding the public hearing to solicit public opinion. The more steps to the plan that we just discussed. There's the plan development, the public input, feedback after the plan is developed, and the approval process. Prohibited exemptions include, but not are limited to, district governance, curriculum and TEKS, our Texas assessment system, our state accountability system, school finance, federal requirements, and other requirements in state law outside of the education code. Allowable exemptions. First and last day of school, educator certification, teacher contracts, length of school day, class size, certain purchasing and contract requirements. There is a long list of options, and the committee will decide which exemption would meet our needs. There are also other resources out there. The Texas Education Agency, the Texas Association of School Boards, other districts. There are approximately 792 districts of innovation currently. Across the state, 792 out of 1,031 districts is 71%. And in our region, approximately 22 of 33 districts have adopted a plan. Concerns that would not be of benefit to the district or community. I wanted to include tonight. Teacher contract exemption to remove a duty-free lunch or guaranteed planning time. That would not benefit our district or community. Teacher certification to hire non-certified teachers over certified teachers. Classroom size. An exemption from the 22-to-1 ratio for pre-K through 4th grade. And also our final concern is the 5-year timeline. The plan can be terminated, amended by the Board of Trustees, and within the term of the plan, other areas of exemption are to be considered. The board will appoint a new committee to consider and propose additional exemptions in the form of an amendment to the plan. So the process begins again if the plan needs to be amended. Thank you, and this concludes the presentation of the district innovation information.
Thank you, Ms. Woolham. As she stated, the presentation for District of Innovation has concluded, and we will now hear comments from anyone who has signed up to speak. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes per speaker and must also be limited to the subject matter of District of Innovation. Mr. Martinez, our board vice president, will be the timekeeper. I would ask that anyone addressing the board please be respectful of the privacy of our students and staff in speaking. And board members, if we wish to address the audience, ask questions or answer questions that may be asked this evening, please wait until the conclusion of the public comment portion of this hearing. Once we have heard from everyone who has signed up to speak, we will open the floor. So with that, list, do we have any more? Our first speaker will be Ms. Deborah Cordova.
As a member of
Yes, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Several years ago, the TEA discontinued the opportunity for districts to apply for a waiver for an early start date, and the DOI status allows for an exemption from that law, as the waiver did, and we've used it for many years before now. As a member of the DEIC committee, this seemed to be a solution that would allow the district to decide on our own start date again. It could give us a week or two longer for instruction before the students have to take their state standardized tests, which we are scored and rated on in comparison to school districts that are near us. The calendar flexibility will allow our dates to coincide with area school districts and help us as far as hiring. In addition, changing our teacher contracts from 187 days to 182 without a pay and change could be a benefit when hiring. When the state changed the law from student days to minutes, they did not adjust teacher days. The extra days cost the district money when they have to bring in costly professional development speakers, not to mention the buildings and utility uses for that extra week or so. I personally feel that these are two items alone would help and would benefit the district. And I also personally do not feel that this opportunity should be shut down due to conflicts among our board, superintendent, and administration. If DOI status could benefit our students and their education, we should set aside our differences and come together to make informed decisions.
Our next speaker will be Mr. Craig Stewart. Mr. Stewart.
Will DOI have any effect on teachers' contracts? If so, how is it going to affect them? I got it. In an article by the Texas Association of School Board, Representative Gonzalez says it's important in considering DOI to have trust in the administration and the board. With the last several years on constant turnovers in administration and teachers, are there particular concerns we should consider? How is DOI committee formed? Can anyone that wants to be on it be on it? And also, being that I read the agenda, how many of you board members already picked this committee? Because I know some didn't. I hear the biggest reason for DOI is to change the calendar dates. How is that being innovative? That's all I hear is about innovative. So how is that being innovative? Will a new discipline code be part of DOI? Can we expect improvement in our scores, instruction for the students with DOI? I mean, we're already at a B rating with everybody else around us that has went this, and our rating is better. Why are we wanting to go DOI if our rating is better than everybody else's and we're not DOI? With going DOI, how, if any, will it affect the state and federal funding or grants the school already receives? Are there any negative effects we need to be aware of? We're hearing all the positives. What are the negatives? Can and will DOI affect teacher conferences and duty-free lunches? Let's see here. I got a bunch of these. TASB site says DOI plans can be amended at any time by a committee and a board vote. What does that mean when it says it can be done by a DOI committee or a comparable committee? Who or what would be a comparable committee? I just heard from Ms. Willems, if we're going to have a committee, why are we going to form a new committee if we want to change this in a year if the board gets flipped?
That's 2 minutes, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Our next and final speaker will be Ms. Whitney Larkin. Ms. Larkin.
I'm Whitney Larkin, and I'm just speaking as a parent and an advocate for our students and our teachers, not just my children, but other children, but also our teachers. I have, since I've had kids in public school, this is my 3rd year having children in public education, I have depended a lot on teachers and administrators to help me understand things and learn how I can be of best support to my kids, but also to them. And with that said, the reason I ask you all to consider exploring the DOI is because there's so many districts in Texas, and I've talked to people all over personally that I haven't heard any of the negative, the concerns, like the class size and the duty-free lunches and things like that. That's a big concern. I don't want my kid packed in a classroom with a non-certified teacher with 35 kids. So that's a question I have for administration. Is that anything that you would ever consider? Because that's definitely not something that would be in the best interest of our children. However, I think for our teachers to be most effective, for one, they need parental support. We're not always going to agree, and most of the time we don't agree because we do not understand. I'm not an educator. I have no idea. I'm a nurse, and we have something we call evidence-based practices. So you can do all the numbers and statistics, and they're going to focus on one little thing. But evidence-based means you try it and it works. And that's how you know it's a good fit, because it works. And it's very individualized, patient to patient. And here, it should be school district to school district. And if this could work for Jasper and be good for Jasper and be good for our students, then I'm asking you all to please consider it. But we do need to have the trust in the administration. I personally do. I feel the trust. I'm on all campuses all the time. I have children at everywhere except you, and last year I had a kid there. I don't have any trust issues. Everything's not perfect all the time, but we don't live in a perfect world. I don't agree with everything my husband does. I don't agree with everything my kids do. So,
Thank you, Ms. Thank you, Ms. Larkin. That concludes our public comment portion of the public hearing, and at this time, board members will have an opportunity now to discuss any information that's been presented or any information they would like to share, or maybe comment to remarks of those made in the public comment portion. With that, I'm going to lead off, and the only thing I have looked at all of these many components of what could make up a District of Innovation plan, and however many there are, the overwhelming majority I could never support. However, I really believe there may be a couple of pieces that whomever and whatever the committee looks like, if we get to that point, if they come back to us and the plan is right, and it's right for the students, and it's right for the teachers, and it's right for the district, that would be the only way I would support it. So with that, any other member have anything to say?
I do.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Stewart.
I would like to address what Whitney just discussed, and that is evidence-based information. I did look at about 15 school districts that are all DOI, with the exception of Jasper and Silsbee. Hudson School happens to be the one that appears that we should be role modeling after. They have an A rating. They're ranked 115 out of 973 schools across 15%. They perform better than 115% of the districts. Where Jasper, on the other hand, has performed 11%. Jasper had a B rating, not being a DOI. There was 6 of the districts that have only been DOI for 2 months, which was Lumberton, Kirbyville, Hemp Hill, Zavala, and Burkeville. So, you know, we really couldn't even look at them because they haven't been DOI long enough to know what it's done with them. So, with that said, Buna has a C rating. They are ranked 511. Jasper's ranked 867. Buna has been a DOI for 1 year. Woodville has a C rating. They also have been a DOI for 1 year. They're ranked 626. So, and when you look at their percentages over 5 years, 2014, 15, 16, 17, and 18, so that you can clearly see what their percentages did, they didn't improve. So my question has been all along is what these districts haven't been DOI long enough to give us the information we need to know whether or not it's going to improve our district. And if it doesn't, if it's not going to improve the quality of education we're going to provide our children, then I'm not sure why we're looking at it at all. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Any other member? Mr. Graham?
Yeah, looking at the PowerPoint, there's a couple of slides. There's, and I know we only start out by saying, I know we can only pick 1 or 2 or 10, whatever we want to exempt from. And I keep hearing calendar, about we started 5 days after, 187 and 182. Real world, I work 2,080 plus hours a year. So we run school districts like organizations. The other thing is that when I see allowable exemptions, look at educator certification. Then you look at the slide that says concerns that would not be of the benefit teacher certification. So there, we already have non-certified teachers. We can get a waiver from TEA, notify the parents. Those are the 2 things we have to do. So here we listed that are that are allowable, and then it's not a benefit. Then we look at the next thing is class size that's allowable, not a benefit. Exemption from a 22-to-1 ratio. If you combine a non-certified teacher as a kindergarten teacher and put them in a classroom with 30 plus children, which we've already had this year, that was expressed to us in a board meeting earlier this year, that we had large class sizes, not in the kindergarten, but in our other ones. And then we've seen some of the discipline issues that we've addressed here recently. So that's on what we could do and what's not a benefit. And then you look at the teacher contracts. In board meeting, we have been said we were not able to hire and offer contracts. Number one of that is our recruitment process doesn't begin until, we attend some job fairs and things, but an actively HR department that would actively recruit teachers, we do not have that. So we have talked about that. So it seems like the things that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullet points, and then over there, 1, 2, 4 of those are saying those are not benefits to the community. So we want to adopt DOI just for a calendar. And when we talk about professional development, that is on the approval of administration. The administration is the ones that bring those speakers in. And to prepare for that, I know y'all started 3 weeks early. 3 weeks before the kids started. Big preparation and things. But, what are the actual benefits that our community and our children, 82% academically, are economically disadvantaged? What about the other 18%? Are we going to put them in a classroom with 30 plus kids? I just can't see the benefit of it to our community. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Duran. Anyone else?
I would like to just reiterate the fact that District of Innovation, to me, in my opinion, the word innovation should not even be a part of what it is, because innovative, you think about creative ways. My opinion is that this should be called the District of Exemptions, because what it actually does is exempt from existing laws from TEA in the state. There have been masters before us that have determined what the laws should be to regulate our schools so that they are protective of students, staff, community as a whole, and everybody in the state. There are people that are well more versed than I am and well more educated that have had to look at each and every rule and regulation that they put in place through TEA. And I am not one to say those get thrown out the window because we want something new. I would love to drive 70 and a 55 to get where I'm going faster. But the law says I have to drive 55 when the sign's there. I am not one to say we just throw it all out the window and do what we want at any time.
Thank you, Ms. Martindale. Anyone else?
Byron, could you clarify maybe some of the comments, I guess, that the other board members have made? Are there any corrections or misrepresentations or assumptions that need to be clarified?
Good afternoon. Is this on?
Yes.
Is it on? Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Well, first of all, as the Region 5 representative, we are very neutral on the subject. We are not for, we are not against District of Innovation. We do work with a lot of districts to help them work through the process, just like we are doing tonight. The intent of the District of Innovation is to provide local governance. This is a huge state, and a canned system for West Texas versus East Texas versus North Texas versus the Valley is very different. And so the purpose behind the District of Innovation is simply to give you local authority to make decisions that are in the best interest of teachers, community, students, etc. And so that's just kind of the baseline behind it. If anyone has specific questions, we'll be happy to answer those. I don't know if that helps at all, but that's just, I just wanted to kind of give you what the intent was behind the law.
I think one question I heard was affect the federal state funding, anything like that?
It gives you a little bit of flexibility with state comp ed monies, but not a whole lot. It's really not something that's going to be a great benefit to make any adjustments there, but there can be some changes. And you have to be careful about the minutes, making sure that you meet those minutes. You get funded based on attendance, and so those would be things that you would want to be careful of. But beyond that, there's not any real great exemptions that are going to benefit the district as far as funding.
It's not.
Not really, not in that area. Yeah, there's no harm, that's just kind of one of those neutral. It gives you a little more flexibility, like I said, with the state comp ed funds, but no real change in overall funding.
Correct this, if you don't mind, because I've attended too many sessions and trainings and seminars and everything else on the District of Innovation. And one of the things I took away from all of those, and one of the things that as people spoke to me publicly the last 3 or 4 weeks is first of all, all of the concerns any of us probably have heard are just, they're founded. But what I've told them is in your plan for if you have 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces, any number of those pieces, you can also insert restrictions and limitations. It's not just what you're going to do, but in doing that, we're not going to do this.
That is correct. And so if the board elects to move forward, the board can give parameters to work within, and then it goes to the committee, and the committee will make decisions based on those parameters that they were given. And so, and then it will be a recommendation, the plan will be a recommendation back to the board for final adoption. Yes, ma'am.
That plan does not stay in place the entire 5-year obligated time period if the committee wants to amend it. Isn't that correct?
That is correct, but it would go through the process, the entire process again for an amendment to that.
But it can be done.
It can be done.
As many times as you so wish over that 5-year period.
I'm sorry, so that
As many times as you wish over that 5-year period
as
that we're
long as you
committed.
go through the process, yes, ma'am.
And what would that process be? The committee, exactly, right?
Yes, sir.
And a final 2/3 vote.
Final 2/3 vote.
And if I'm not mistaken, so it's up to 5 years. So we could actually, if the committee proposed a plan, the board could restrict that and say, okay, we're only going to do this, say that's 3 years. And the board has an opportunity to revisit that on an annual basis?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
But now when you say that, the DOI itself is a commitment for 5 years, correct?
Well,
According to TEA.
It is. You're making a commitment it's a 5-year commitment, but you can change it within that time if you go through the process again. So you could limit it to actually nothing. It still would be in place, but there would be no, you could amend it to where there were no exemptions.
And there are districts that are already within their first year that are amending those and of course going through the process. What if there's some, all of us kind of watching videos and talking is, what is there was a TA put out, they had 3 lawyers, some YouTube videos. There was some discussion about discipline, how the principals have a discipline with the DOI, you could actually go away from it. I really didn't understand a lot of that on there. What's the discipline side of the DOI?
Y'all have any experience with the discipline piece?
The key piece for discipline.
That
Can y'all hear me? I'll talk loud. The key piece for
Yeah.
discipline,
Y'all need to use the mic up
the key
there if
piece
you don't
for
mind.
discipline is, one, you have to know that the board is required by statute to approve the student code of conduct.
And that cannot be removed. The board will still always have to come back and revisit the student code of conduct. And those of you that are educators in the audience know that's the Bible when it comes to discipline of students. And it would still require board approval, so you would still see that and be able to review it and approve it. It's not something that can be removed, or it's not an area that the district can innovate in.
And then the next thing that I saw was the counselors. I think when this happened in Mansfield, is on the counselor side, and just being in the community and thinking about, and actually messing with some of our community leaders, talking about how we are addressing the job force, people entering the job force, and how our counselors meet with them at an early age, at 7th, 8th, and that's even a state thing right now, that we're doing a 60-30 plan. And so when you got those counselors that are in that middle school directing those students to military, workforce, or whatever, in the DOI, you can actually go to more of a social worker instead of a guidance education counselor, right? Yeah, that's a thing there too.
And one thing,
To respond to that, also remember that anything that goes in the plan, every exemption is not included in your plan. You would not include the entire laundry list of exemptions available in the plan. You would only include the exemptions that this board deems acceptable and productive for the students, staff, and community. So while there are technically under the code, there's a list of exemptions that TEA has identified, but actually you have great flexibility to bring about pretty much any exemption that you want, of course in conjunction with your counsel to make sure you don't do anything that would get you in trouble. But ultimately, it gives great flexibility to create any exemption that you want in addition to what TEA has identified, with the goal being local control. If that is what this district wants, this board wants, and how they want to operate here in Casper.
Well, and that's the risk factor. As I think Mr. Stewart mentioned, this board, other than the last election, has changed all 7 trustees in the prior 3 elections. So what happens when we change that board and you have a whole new board that has a different, maybe, and I hope whoever follows will be just as concerned to the protection, not only for our students and teachers and community, but you never have, once you step into that, you've got that risk factor to consider. And with a small community like this, it's trying to really grow economically, and that is something that is very disturbing.
Mr. Webb, that's a lot.
Okay, so to comment on what Mr. Duran just said, and I understand what you mean by risk factor, but to me, the risk is mitigated because the actual plan to come back, even to come back before the board for a vote will require a 2/3 vote, and that's only if it's presented by the committee. So, but Ms. Sierra, I've got a question for you, just basically a confirmation, and going back to what Byron said a while ago. So, if we pursue DOI and we become a DOI, can you be a DOI without a plan?
Meaning if you approve a plan and then later decide we do not want to implement any of these provisions.
That's correct.
Yes, after you, say you approve a 5-year plan, 1 year down the road, the board says this is not working, we don't trust this, it's not productive for Jasper ISD. At that point in time, the board could rescind that plan, and it would no longer be implemented.
Okay, and then if a plan is rescinded, the district must notify TEA of the recession within 5 business days and provide a date for compliance with all sections of the Texas Education Code.
That would be correct.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Stewart.
I have a question. Ms. Fisher?
Turn it on.
Ms. Fisher,
Sure. Yes.
can you exempt, say, if we're going to exempt from a code, can you exempt from a portion of that code?
Meaning, for instance, say you would like to carve out start date and say we are no longer going to be subject to the mandatory start date, however, we will start no earlier than this date. Is that what you mean?
No, I mean, if there is any part of the code, just say 12, just say code, education code 12. If there is, which normally most of the codes address numerous things, can you exempt a portion of that code 12, but not the remainder of the code 12? Because my understanding is you cannot.
So the way the education code is written, there are chapters. For instance, there's chapter 12, and then there are sections within the chapter. For instance, District of Innovation chapter is 12A. So if you're asking, can you exempt yourself from 12A.001 and not 12A.002, yes, there are specific provisions that you would cite to that we would like to be exempt from this specific provision and not other provisions. There is actually a figure that TEA put out that identifies the laundry list of exceptions that it is identified that districts have exempt themselves from underneath the education code. And the list, it's literally check boxes of here's a section and here is the identification of the section. Do you want to be exempt from this provision? You can select all, you can select one. It ultimately comes down to what the committee, should you deem to appoint one, determines is in the best interest of Jasper.
I appreciate that, but I did definitely give you the wrong code. Because I wasn't referencing DOI.
It's hypothetical.
Did that answer your question? Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. So one of the things that I'm taking from this is there's a lot of what ifs that's been brought up from both sides, the board, community members, stakeholders. I think what we have to realize is that this is going to be based off of community educator involvement. Forming a committee. One of the biggest things with district innovation is that it brings that local control back to our town, our city, which, we have very passionate educators, parents, stakeholders in here that would, however the committee's formed, would not bring, I think, anything intentionally to be detrimental to board, for the board to vote. I think everything that would be brought would be something that would really be beneficial to the district. And I think that, you know, with these what ifs, we got to understand that, you know, there's a trust that we have to put in this committee. And with that, I know there's a lot of passionate educators that will bring us great ideas back to us for us to vote on. And that's the biggest thing that I think that we have to see, is that a lot of times that, you know, educators, parents, they voice their opinions to us, and, you know, a lot of times those concerns get caught up in the bureaucracy and the red tape of running the school district. But with this here, it gives them a avenue for us to be able to hear their voice and see what they really want their tax dollars for, so to speak. That's it.
Sure, Randy, can I ask one more question?
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you on this committee. So it's administration, and this is probably Mr. Carrier, is, so the committee does not include administration or any, right, at the school? But then it's teachers or staff, and then community and parents. So,
I'm referring to Sierra.
okay, I'm sorry. So, just going around the region, and one of the things that, talking to another superintendent, one of the first things that they did is they called a forum of all of their teachers and kind of explained to them, this is DOI. And as a social media watcher, I see a lot that even our teachers, that this affects so much, are uninformed. And asking, has that forum been populated for our teachers? The answer has been no, as a group. So when I hear some questions out here tonight, and then the question that I have, I wonder how that committee, if you do not have administration lead, how they are going to know what to exempt that district from. Because they have to have some type of leadership, or are we going to say we've got 50 people, just say we each point, because I was thinking community, parent, teacher, 7 board members, 21 members. How are those 21 people going to are we going to ask them, go out and spend all this time researching to understand DOI? Or can we really say that one of our administration is not going to be in there saying, this is what we would like you to lead? How does that, I mean, there's got to be some type of guidance there. Or do you have those teachers that are going to be more vocal and supportive of it, leading that group? Because, you know, you always have in groups, you're going to have those that are more vocal leaders and the ones that are followers. So how is that committee led?
I can tell you under the statute, when we look at both the commissioner's rules and the Texas Education Code, there is no guidance or requirements as to who is on the committee. It is at the discretion of the board as the governing body of the school district. There are 3 main options that we have seen school districts utilize. One would be your district level committee, and utilizing that committee that's already formed. The board delegating to the superintendent to appoint a committee, or third, the board sitting down and identifying the individuals that they trust to develop a plan in the best interest of the school district.
But still, how are they going to get leader? I mean, if I see Mitch and, Craig and Eddie, and, they got a day job where they're working 40 plus hours, or am I going to say, Mitch, go out there and spend 3 hours, or spend like we do a weekend reading on that, or is Mitch going to go to one of these, administrator, to Stacy or Dr. Hudson or somebody and say, tell me what you want? I mean,
Well, I'll tell you,
let me go ahead and address this, Mr. Durant. So, yes, even though the committee will be mostly of the makeup, you still will probably have an administrator, or I can go with Region 5 to facilitate. That is to make sure that the things keep moving forward. to, as you say, provide direction as far as what to do, not what to do, but make sure they're on track and doing the things they need to do their homework, and have those discussions, and not allow people to allow their opinions to overshadow what someone else is thinking. Now, I think that anyone understand that in opinions, people, you have to listen, but I can't change your viewpoint. But again, especially when you talk about plans, it really becomes a consensus. I don't believe you're ever going to get one group to go 100% one way, but we always talk about, is this something that you ultimately can live with when they start making the decision on the plan so they can present to the board. So in essence, you will have to have some type of facilitator to facilitate the whole process.
So I guess it's just like the DEIC committee. That committee has administration in that committee room, right?
There are some people on
that committee is asking administration questions about, well, what do you think, and that like that. Because I just don't see where there is just a unbiased, anytime that you have an administration in that, leading that committee.
I would highly recommend that we don't have any JISD administrative officials facilitating that, and that we do ask the Regional Service Center to come up and facilitate that, so there is no bias.
Is that a commitment, Bob?
As I've already mentioned, I would like to see us follow the state requirement in the education code requiring us to create a decision-making committee by the entire district, cafeteria workers, transportation, teachers, everyone, nominating candidates for the committee and voting by ballot who will serve on that committee, so that it's representative of the entire district, all campuses, which I've already requested that.
Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? Okay, with that, with there being no further discussion, the board will now move on to our agenda item 3 again. And we will convene again in closed session pursuant to Texas codes, Texas Government Codes 551.074 and 551.071. We have a motion to convene back in closed session.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. We're adjourned to closed session.